Hello and welcome back everyone to Blender Geometry Node workshop for Jungle Vines. In the last lesson, we set ourselves up by just fixing a couple of issues in regards to the vines themselves. And now we're going to make sure we add a certain material, certain texture on top of it. So for us to do that, we'll firstly need to get ourselves up with UV coordinates basically, so we could actually use a texture that's provided within a resource pack. So for us to do that, we will firstly need to get ourselves the data to be used for in regards to what we need to grab from the curvature mesh itself. We're going to navigate to the vine mesh, and then we're going to go ahead and firstly grab capture attribute in regards to X and Y value. So that's going to be the setup for the curved circle, since this is what controls basically the setup itself for a 2D type of a circle. If we have a look at it, we can see what it does. Click Control, Shift, and left mouse button, and we should see this tiny circle over here. So that's what's basically controlling the curvature, and it essentially extrudes the entire setup throughout the curve points to get to the mesh, so to this point over here. So we're going to go ahead and just simply make use out of it and just duplicate the same type of information for the UV unwrap. And for us to do that, we're going to go ahead and capture data from a UV circle. I'm going to go ahead and move the curve mesh a little bit to the side. I'm going to delete the viewer, going to click Shift and A and search for capture attribute. And then I'm going to put the capture attribute in here. And what we want is we want to make sure we capture this curved circle right before it's done with the radius. So this radius over here, we're going to remove it for now. We're going to keep it as a default 1. So it'll give us the default type of a setup like so. Then the next thing is we also need to make sure we capture the right data. Right now, this capture data is only capturing the float data value. We want to make sure we capture within a 3D space, vector data. Let's go ahead and simply select vector like so. This way it'll give us X, Y, and Z values to capture. Then we're going to just simply capture position for those values. So we're going to go ahead and just capture geometry position, Shift and A, we can type in position, and we're going to read geometry position like so. We're going to input it over here, and we're going to get ourselves a nice attribute data. If we have a look at it, we can just go ahead and do that like so. We should get ourselves this type of a setup, which indicates that we're on the right path, as we're capturing basically each sides individually. Then after which we can use transform geometry to actually set the radius back up. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and delete the view. Move this to the side. Shift and A, search for transform geometry. Place it in here. And I'm going to just change the scale to radius. Like so. Just move this a little bit downwards. Just like that. Essentially, this will give us the same result as it did for the radius over here, but we're just simply capturing the attribute before we apply the radius itself. So there is that. And now it should work in exactly the same way as we had previously set up, which it does. So that's good for us. And now we want to basically store an attribute. We are going to get ourselves a store attribute setup first. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and search for store named attribute. We're going to place it right after the curved mesh, like so. And this will essentially allow us to, store the information to make use out of it in the shader parameter. So we're going to change this from float value to vector. We're going to make sure that this is set as point. And then the naming is really important. We need to make sure that the naming actually correlates with the naming that we do in the shading. So it would be exactly the same match. And things like it's key sensitive as well. So capital letters and whatnot should be same. In this particular case, I'm just going to call it UV_map like so. And that's it for the name. As for the XYZ, we're going to basically make use out of the captured attribute over here. But we want to make sure we only use X and Y values. For the Z value, we're going to make use out of the information in the back, basically. I'll show you in a bit. But for us to do that, basically, we need to, to use the capture attribute, we need to make sure we split the attributes that we only get X and Y values from it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to lower the transform geometry so we could actually have some space over here to work with. Then I'm going to drag it from the attribute. I'm going to just type in separate XYZ. There you go. So this will allow us to split them into X, Y, and Z float values. And from here, we just want to basically, I'm going to move this a little bit to the side. From here, we just want to basically combine X, Y, Z, like so. So we could actually get ourselves a vector value. Then X and Y, they're going to be put over here. And as for the Z value, we're just going to use the length of the curvature, which is going to be actually all the way in the back. And that's going to be this length over here. So because we basically replaced the length with the capture attribute, that is, we can just go ahead and delete this. And we can actually make a split over here, which will help us to kind of organize ourselves a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and hold shift. I'll just split it with the right mouse button. And then I can just tap on this point, and to make it a little bit easier for myself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click F2 and I'm going to just type in length like so. And that will simply just help us to navigate from spline parameter length where it is in regards to this separation information. So again, this is from the capture attribute that we did from spline parameter length that we did before changing the curve to mesh, merging it all, and curve mesh to curve back in. And this information will allow us to now bring it all the way to the Z values. So of course we don't want it to just go straight through it. We should probably go through the top. Or actually, I will just go straight through it, and I will just split it off a little bit like so. To the top, just like that. And that's a little bit nicer. Going to click SY0. There we go. All right, so that is much better. Now we have ourselves the information for XYZ value. We can click Control Shift and just tap on this area over here, or actually, sorry, on the stored name attribute, just to see it like so. And there we go. We got ourselves combined with XYZ and stored a name attribute geometry. And this is what we should be getting basically. We should get ourselves the color palette within the geometry visualizer. And it's exactly what we need in order to kind of help us to get the texture information out. Just a real quick thing, again, in case I just sped up through it a little bit too fast. To get the viewer, I can just click on one to get geometry, and then I can click and hold Control Shift again and just tap on another one. In this case, it's going to be a vector value. Because the first one was a geometry, it's going to assign onto the viewer geometry, but the value itself, I can just click Control Shift and left mouse button again to navigate the input for the viewer from the value of combined X, Y, Z. And yeah, we can just visualize it like that. Anyways, back to the shader setup. I'm going to go ahead and delete this, maybe just slightly reposition it so we wouldn't see it like so. And I just realized that joint geometry is maybe way too far in the back. I could perhaps lower this down. We will fix all of these being expanded. I will show you a really nice setup for that, but it's going to be on the end part when we actually start cleaning everything up, which we're going to do after the texturing part. And we're running out of time, so actually we're going to continue on with the texture setup, with the shader setup in the next lesson. So that's going to be it. We got ourselves the UV map information, and then in the next lesson we're going to learn how to make use out of it. So thank you so much for watching, and I will be seeing you in a bit.